I was incredibly surprised to see CNN cover this, right? And the conversation is basically, why are men choosing to be single? Again, why are men choosing to be single? Make sure you hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. Let's get into the video, y'all.
Last week, I delved here into recent data from the CDC suggesting major problems with regard to the mental health of our adolescents, surges in depression and suicidal ideation, especially true for our girls. This week, I found cause to worry about young men. This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not.
Remember that. Remember this literal quote right here. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. All right. Thank you, Gemini. I'm going to read your super chat shortly.
The story reported that as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship.
So this is how they're defining single. 30% of U.S. adults, almost 1/3 of everybody, is by themselves. They ain't married. They're not living with a partner. They're not even engaged in a committed relationship. This is according to Pew Research Center, which is a reputable research center. Okay, so they don't even. I define single as either you're married or you're single. I don't have no gray area. They're defining single as just somebody that you're with. All right, we add in all of the factors in the context before we deep dive into this.
Nearly half of all young adults are single. Now, look at these numbers. 34% of women, twice as many, a whopping 63% of men. What explains that? I pulled the Pew study and I read with interest. Turns out since 2019, the share of single men who say they're looking for dates or a relationship has declined from 61% to 50%. In 2018, 28% of men ages 18 to 30 reported they'd had no sex in the past year, compared with 18% of women of that age.
So nearly 1/3 of men were honest enough, because you know niggas be lying about whether or not they get in that box or not. It's still dudes that be lying on they D, all right? 28% of men, almost 1/3 of all of the men that they've researched, all of the men, and this is the Pew Research Center, is saying that they have not had sex within the past year. And these ain't inmates either. These is regular, everyday adults that's outside. Let's continue.
The Hill report said men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. Among the causes, among the factors, a reliance on social media and online porn.
Can we stop it there and just mine this out? Can we stop it there and mine this out? Now they're giving you the factors. They're deep diving, and they're giving you the additional context. What do I say all the time? Stop watching porn. Stop using porn. Stop depending on porn. I say this all the time. I had this conversation with y'all all the time. The more availability that you have, the more options that you have, the worse decisions that you generally make for yourself. The more freedom that you have, the more bad decisions that you usually make for yourself. Let's continue.
But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying slightly older men, and heterosexual women are getting more choosy.
More women. This is the Sodom and Gomorrah that y'all wanted. More women are starting to bump uglies. I'm gonna tell you the way that my mama told me. She said women that rub monkeys together. She said women that rub monkeys together are bumping uglies. That's what she said. Don't get mad at me. Women that rub their monkeys together. Because I know some of y'all is out there looking like some hairy monsters. Monsters Inc. down there. You ain't a dolphin like me. You're not smooth like me, right? And so you bumping uglies. Women are bumping uglies. They're getting involved with older men. Shout out to all of the zaddies out here in these streets. They doubling up, tripling up. They decide they want to be sad chicks, and they getting more choosy. They say, listen, I'm either choosing to be by myself. I can't find the man that I want. I might bump some uglies in the meantime. And Zaddy is over here giving out the bag. He making it rain out here. All right, let's continue.
Other troubling statistics about men come from a 2021 study from the Survey Center for American Life. They found the share of men who have 6 or more close friends, which in 1990 was 55%, by 2021 had shrunk by half. Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which
Y'all don't even have no friends no more. Y'all don't even have no friends no more. That's why y'all be sitting beefing on the internet all day, because y'all ain't got nothing better to do. Listen. When you get into it with somebody on the internet, trust me, I know. You let it fly, and then you go and you go and release. You go and go and get your monster mash on. It's a strong possibility almost every single time that I've gotten off of a show, and then it went bad, and I cut somebody out or I kicked somebody off. I was over there making it do what it do, baby. But y'all just be going on and on. And 3 days from now and 2 weeks from now, you still beefing with everybody that you was beefing with, and you ain't never even met these people in real life. And you are holding them down and not even making no money as a result of it. And so people ain't got no friends. They ain't getting no box. They not bumping uglies, right? Let's continue.
which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%. An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men.
It does.
Quote, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women.
That's correct.
Younger women are largely responsible for rising rates of mass shootings, a trend that some researchers link to their growing social isolation.
Listen to what he's saying, y'all. In the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. But we sitting here having conversations on a regular basis about how it is that we can empower women, how we can make women more profitable, how we can get women more money, how it is that we need to make women more black girl magic, triple minority, you a woman, you black, and you ugly. We sitting here having these conversations on a regular basis on how it is that we supposed to fix women. But in reality, if you want to look at the fall or the rise of any great society, is largely determined by how successful and how great their men are, right? And so instead of us pouring more resources into who we want to be the future leaders of our households, because I don't know any woman that, even the ones that say that they want a partner, I don't know any woman that says that she wants a weak man. I don't know one woman in the world. What they settle for is a completely different thing than what it is that they actually want. I don't know one woman that say I want a docile, weak, or emasculated man to come into my presence and take over what's going on in my household. That's not what they say. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Young men are largely responsible for the rising rates of mass shootings, a trend some researchers link to their growing social isolation.
Well, those words reminded me of a conversation that I had over a year ago right here on CNN with NYU professor Scott Galloway.
But the issue is when you have a group of men, the lower half of attractiveness of men in online dating, which has doubled, now it's about half of relationships, and the top 20% of men in terms of attractiveness get about 60% of the interest, you end up with a group of men that are more prone to conspiracy theory, more prone.
So then listen to what he's saying, conspiracy theory. So now you got a bunch of dudes online, because that's where they congregate. They congregate in groups online, and it's not their fault. They've been isolated. They've been emasculated. They've been raised by single mothers. And now they're in a space to where the top 20% of men, according to what this man just said, get 60% of the women. That's 3/5 of all women on the face of the earth, that means that you get a side chick, 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 and you get a bust down. That's what it's saying. This is saying that, listen to what we're saying, y'all. And it's going to largely tie back into my original point that I made in the first place. All social media did is the same thing that money does. It exaggerated what we already knew the problem was to be. So if you wasn't out and about and actually improving yourself and getting that bag and whatever it is that you was doing before, all technology did, or all money does, is make you more of who you already are. You become more of that good thing or that bad thing. Social media didn't solve for your problems by making sex and box more easily available. And when I get on these panels, especially when I'm on Fight Club at night sometimes, and everybody is getting boxed, everybody is busting her down, and everybody got all of these different options. And listen, I ain't messing with that chick because she a single baby mama. You's a lie, and the truth ain't in you. Because the research is showing that if it's 700 people that was watching Fight Club, or 800 or 1,000 people that's watching Fight Club, I see over 1,000, over 1,100, over 1,200 people in here right now. That means that there's somebody that is watching this, typing hard, acting like they getting all of these options in a box, and they get nothing. That means that there's an 80% window that you have not gotten boxed in the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And somebody else is probably busting down your baby mama who you got left by in the first place. This is a problem. This is a problem. Feminism is a problem. Celebrating black girl magic is a problem. Not continuing to build our men up to be what it is that they need to be, and then allowing for them to actually be rewarded for their hard effort and their hard work is a problem, because then it creates these problems and these mass issues that we then have to deal with all together as a society. See, at some point, society is going to get to the point to where it's already a class war. It's already a class war. And it's going to grow to the point to where you guys are, the women, are largely going to be the punching bags for the men that don't feel like they can adequately compete with other men. You want to know the clearest example of it? Women's sports. You know who about to take over women's sports? Men. I watched a track and meet video the other day, a recent track and field video. And now they have allowed, largely within women's sports, men to be able to say, hey, I identify as a woman and I want to kick your ass. They in wrestling, they in swimming, they in track and field. Hopefully they go on into listen, because this is what you wanted. Hopefully they go into the WNBA and they be bodying y'all and dunking on your fucking head because you wanted equal. Well, guess what? Equal looks like this. It looks like there is no specific differentiation between a woman's sport and a man's sport. It's just basketball, wrestling, football, kick your ass. Let me show you what it is that I'm made of. And the dude didn't even try, and he was kicking them chicks' butts all day long. And now y'all want to get upset about it. Now y'all want to try to figure things out. We already in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's over. It's over. Let's continue.
Prone to misogynistic content, more prone to not believe in climate change. So this is the American story. If it's written with a pen whose ink is failing young men, does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
As always, Professor Galloway was prescient. Back with me now is Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the host of the Professor G podcast and author of multiple best-selling books, most recently, Adrift, America in 100 Charts. Scott, thanks for returning. Hasn't the advantage always been to those with the looks and or the...
Hold on. Tell me that this ain't true. Grand source, anti-New York Post article says that the SVB gave more than $73 million to Black Lives Matter movement and other money. We'll tackle that in a minute. Don't worry about it.
Money, what's changed?
First off, Michael, I just want to say thank you for raising this issue a year ago when a lot of media companies were afraid to talk about this for fear of it being pro-men was somehow being anti-women. Look, this is returning to the natural order of things. For the majority of history, a small percentage of men have had the majority of the mating opportunities. But in America, we decided to make a huge investment in what would probably be the greatest innovation in history, and that is in the middle class. From 1945 to 1947, 7 million men returned from war were discharged from the service, and we decided to give them the GI Bill, subsidized mortgages. We saw education rates go from 5 to 45%. They were valued, and we had such a strong manufacturing base that you had massive marriage and household formation. And some men were seen as more economically and emotionally viable. And you've seen the reverse happen with the offshoring of much of our manufacturing base, with a society that quite frankly doesn't value young men. When we talk about problems with people of color or women, we see it as a systemic societal problem. When we see problems or the stats that you just mentioned, we see it as accountability, or that men just need to level up. But married households and household formation are better citizens. They vote, they save at twice the rate, they're less likely to commit crimes, and we have fewer and fewer viable men. We have a dearth of economically and emotionally viable men. But the middle class is an accident. Unless you invest in it, it doesn't happen. Eisenhower decided to invest $500 billion in a national highway project that created tons of jobs. We have, and by the way, the tax rate back then was 91%. We raised money and we redistributed in social programs that made young people more economically viable.
Could you imagine a tax rate that's 91%? Could you imagine a tax rate that is 91%? For every dollar that you make, you get to take home 9 cents if you're rich. That's wild. You might as well just kill me. Because there's no way that I'm going to work extra hard in order to be able to give it over to social programs. But the point is that, because that threw me off right there. That just messed up everything. Hold on. Let me just double check that he even know what he's talking about. He was absolutely right. He was absolutely right. Wow. You can't dispute the facts. You certainly cannot dispute the facts. He was absolutely right. For tax years 1944 through 1951, highest marginal tax rate for individuals was 91%, increasing to 92% for 1952 through 53, reverting to 91% in 1954 through 63. For the 1964 tax year, top marginal rate for individuals was lowered to 77%, then 70% for tax years 1965 through 81. You know what this made? You know what happened as a result of this, right? All that did was made people get a lot more creative, and this is why we have a situation where Anton is having a conversation with you today based off of looking at everything from a business perspective. Because then what happened was people got more creative about how it is that they need to keep their wealth. So that marginal tax rate was based off of the idea that you as an individual would have to pay that if you met certain thresholds. Well, what people did, because this was largely after the Great Depression, and so now everything is starting to make sense. After the Great Depression, this is probably what was enacted in order to satisfy the taste of the eat the rich. So the rich people said, all right, cool. We're going to start getting these tax loopholes and looking at things more from a business perspective, because you can't tax me on anything that I didn't make. And so now in 2023, somebody like Anton makes sure that I donate or I give everything and I redistribute everything back into my companies so that I don't have to pay the same taxes as you do. And then exponentially, rich people became richer, and then 1% of the nation owns 90% of the real estate. And so they created an issue and a problem by not actually doing the thing that was in the best interest of the people, but having this rich eat the rich mentality that then absolutely destroyed everything. And they still didn't even know how to manage the money effectively, because they then started to print more money. Don't even get me started, because I'm about to start deep diving. But all it did was create an environment where rich people said, all right, cool, I'm going to figure out how to not pay no taxes since you want to take everything. 91%, 92%, man, that is crazy.